Well, hey, everybody. I'm so glad that you've chosen to join us for this behind the scenes look at what to me is the centerpiece of the most exciting Easter we're going to be able to do, a short film entirely conceptualized and written and produced and shot and put together by our NorthRidge team. And it is going to be such an exciting demonstration of everything Easter's supposed to be about, the ability for someone who's living in darkness and has no concept or desire for God, being able to find the hope of Jesus. And it's our prayer that this Easter is going to be just that, the moment that people find the hope of Jesus in a major way. And so we're excited to look behind the scenes, because the truth is Christianity is about what goes on behind the scenes. We keep attributing things in our life to everything we see and we do and the things we manage and think we're in control of. But the truth is, it's God who orchestrates everything of quality, everything that's meaningful and eternal in our lives. And he's always at work behind the scenes that we can see. And the same is true with a project like this short film, The Soldier. Behind the scenes, there were a ton of people that you won't see on camera or on screen, and yet they were instrumental to getting this short film to us, and God's been working through their lives as well. And it's instrumental to understand that behind them was God working things out. And this is a huge weekend. It's Easter weekend. This short film is going to premiere tomorrow at 9:16 and 11:16. And I hope you're inviting everyone in your sphere, because it's going to be a worthy investment of time, and it's truly going to be life-changing. But now what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce those who were being used by God behind the scenes to tell us about behind the scenes of the making of the short film, The Soldier. So, hey, everybody. So glad that you're joining me. I'm excited to introduce you to the NorthRidge family and all that are participating right now. But why don't you first introduce yourselves?
I'm Blake. I am the writer-director of this film.
Hi, I'm Carl. I'm one of the editors at NorthRidge, also working on the film, doing a little bit of everything.
Producer. He's a producer. He helped write the story or conceptualize the story.
Mm-hmm. Hi, I'm Rachel. I am one of the producers, and I also do the costuming and hair and makeup and help cast it.
And you act. You reprise your role as Mary Magdalene in this film.
Yes, I reprise as Mary Magdalene.
Hey, I'm Steve. I was the cinematographer on the project, so that's a lot of, I'll explain what that means. Most people don't know, but that's working with the camera. So a lot of my job, I worked with Blake for like the visual side of things, a lot of lighting and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well,
he's the reason it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think all of you were used by God in amazing ways to make it beautiful. And since Rachel, you were involved in makeup, you made everybody far more beautiful than they are. So,
or bloody, or bloody.
More like bloody. Yeah. I get to make those bloody Jesus, Jesus look happen.
Yeah, she actually does. She does like tattoos of scars and stuff. I mean, it's legit. It's crazy.
They're actually 3D prosthetics that I hand sculpt myself, and so they go on like a temporary tattoo. So it kind of looks like a second skin. So our actor is then able to like walk around and do all these things with them actually on his body.
And it looks.
It's an amazing thing, by the way. Seriously, to bring this thing to life. I always think about it this way, and I don't mean to be too sacrilegious, but all the things we have to do to communicate to our culture today that Jesus never had to worry about. I doubt he had a makeup artist. He certainly, and yet this is what he's called us to, and it's what they've done for thousands of years. How can we take this message of hope and communicate it in a relevant and meaningful way to people? And even that makeup thing, Rachel, I mean, that's exactly right. How can we bring this story to life? And that's a part of it. But Blake, I want to start with you if I could. Where was the genesis of this project, The Soldier? How did the idea even come up that we would make a short film at the center of Easter and this one in particular?
Well, Carl and I mean, our passion is film, and obviously you don't get to always do your passions 100% of the time. But we've really been pitching the idea. We did a short film 2 years ago for Easter, actually. It was 6 minutes long, which seemed long at the time. But we did it. It's called Saturday. We actually got some awards for it that we weren't expecting. Rachel got some acting awards, and it was a pretty cool thing. And so we've been really looking for an opportunity to put these skills to use in a narrative sense that's bigger and a broader scope than we've ever done before. And so when we were meeting about Easter, obviously I always pitch the idea, hey, what if we make a movie? And everyone was like, huh, interesting. What would it be about, And you just say Easter, give me a couple days and I'll tell you. And so I had thought about the soldier in the Bible who said, surely this was the Son of God, and that's pretty much all the Bible tells you about him. And for some reason I had this thought, like, what was his walk home like after realizing he killed God? Like, he believes that he killed God and he still had to go home and go to bed. Like, what in the world? That's crazy. What a weird evening that would be. And potentially really dramatic. And so I started kind of tracing that storyline along. And then also I thought, okay, so in the Bible, it says, that soldiers were placed at the tomb to guard it. I thought, what if that guy was actually, it's very feasible that guy could have been one of the soldiers who got posted at the tomb. So not only did he have to deal with the fact that I think I just killed God's son, but now I have to go to work and guard his tomb. Like, isn't that an interesting premise? So I just started fleshing that along and talking to Carl, talking to Paul Black, talking to Roxanne, talking to the team about the idea and just fleshing it out. And I wrote it probably over a weekend. But then obviously there's constant changes and upgrades and fixing things and making it more cinematic as we go. But that was really cool. And then also Steve, I want to say Steve had reached out. Carl, tell us what we're so lucky to have had Steve on this project.
Yeah, well, Steve, he and I had coffee about, I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago now, we had coffee. And you were DPing freelance, and basically your schedule and our schedule and your projects and our projects like never really lined up. And then when Blake brought this film idea, I was still thinking about you, and you actually had posted like a reel of yours, like literally the day before that this idea was pitched. And I was like, what if we get Steve? And as I had that thought, Steve emailed me right after and said, hey, check out my reel. If you're, guys are still available to do a project, I would love to. And I emailed you back like right after. And I was like, yes, like, can you do these dates? So, that was clearly a God moment to me.
Oh my gosh. And Steve, your schedule before this Corona thing, I think you had 2 free days in 3 months or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, it was crazy. It was funny too, because from my perspective, I had made that reel and I had sent it out to a bunch of the companies that I do a lot of work with. And I hadn't sent it out to Carl. And it was probably around the same time that you guys were having your meeting about this film that I was like, it just kind of was in the back of my head, this thought. I was like, I should send the reel to Carl too, just to like see what happens. And so when Carl ended up telling me his side of things, it was definitely one of those moments where you kind of see the plan happening that you didn't realize was happening beforehand. So,
and by the way, I'm thankful for the fact that I can pitch in a meeting, hey, let's make a movie, and that everyone doesn't laugh at me and like laugh me out of the room. People, as I was able to flesh out that idea, I was able to tell people about it, and everyone was like, dude, this is awesome. And then obviously it takes time and effort and all this stuff, and we were able to put our focus towards it because our leadership was like, do it. We believe you can do it. And that right there was like actually a scary moment, because we were like, can we do it?
Now
then
what?
also, yeah, well, now they gave us the green light, so I guess we have to do it. But then
Well,
it's amazing how things came into place after that fact. I mean, it's a miracle in itself that we even got the green light, and then all of a sudden after that, it was like we're standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon saying, how do we get across this?
Well, I tell you what's important is, and I think we have to be grateful for the environment God's given us at NorthRidge Church. And I remember when the idea finally hit my desk and it was being pitched, and people don't understand. I mean, there's huge investments of staff, huge investments of equipment, huge investments of time. And beyond that, the huge investment of Easter's one of our most significant outreach moments in the year. And we're going to give that to a film. But to live in an environment where we believe that you're not supposed to sit comfortably in the boat, you're supposed to get out of the boat and try and walk on water, that the Christian life is a risk of trusting God, but it's not a risk when you really are trusting God and He's leading. I just love the environment we're in. And so to those of you who are watching this, who are part of NorthRidge, we're grateful to be a part of a church community who gets that. And it's a lot of fun. But so Steve, it was great to have you on this. People don't understand that when you're speaking the language of film, the whole idea of, the director of photography and all this different stuff is a big, big deal. And you're not on our staff, you're a part of our church ministry, and this was a volunteer thing. So talk to me about your experience with it.
By the way, we can't afford Steve if he charged us. So the thing is that was a miracle. And I keep using that word miracle, but the fact that Steve was available and that also he was willing to donate his time for this was that you just don't find that in the industry. That's for sure.
Well, and it really was wild because I was thinking more about it this morning. Just kind of some of the things that happened where I see the hand of God in the production. And I remember the first time that Blake sent me the script, like just opening it up, because I'm used to, in my career, it's like I'm doing a lot of product commercials, company promotion pieces and stuff like that. So it's like, there's not a lot of narrative work, not a lot of real storytelling that I'm doing. So cracking open this script and, right away we've got like horses and Roman soldiers and all this stuff going on. It's just like, it scared me at first. I mean, just thinking like, oh my gosh, we have to pull off all of this stuff. And it was really ambitious, which was definitely like, that was a concern of mine going in, especially because our crew was actually very small for the scope of the project that we're trying to pull off. And usually in my career, whenever I've had a crew that small, I make sure that there's a couple people on set that I know, that I've already worked with, that I know are kind of my anchor if anything happens. Like I know that they're gonna know these things, be able to get these things done. And it really was, in a lot of ways, a little bit of a gamble to do this project, at least from my perspective when we were starting, just with how ambitious it was. And I hadn't worked with any of you guys before on a set and having a small crew. And it's amazing to see what ended up happening with all of that, because it really was incredible. Like I think what we ended up making was just way beyond what I thought we were capable of that first day, kind of opening up the script.
I'm going to tell you, having been able to see now the rough cut, and it's still in process, obviously, but it's an amazing thing. And you're right. If people only knew what most people take to do a movie and what God enabled this small little community of artists to do, it's crazy. And I want to get to the things that, and I think it's synonymous, two sides of the same coin, the things that almost made this movie not happen. Steve, you not being part of it would have been one of them probably. And then all the things that only God, I love those two words, only God could make this possible. Because I remember Rachel was pulling out her hair because we had this budget, we'd set it, and it was dreaming these dreams. And it's like, we would have had camels and the whole tiger story. We would have had, I mean, everything. So it's like, so let's start with, the two sides of that equation. What almost stopped this film from happening, and what are the God things that you guys saw?
Too many things almost stopped this thing from happening. I have the wonderful privilege and honor of Blake coming to me with these incredible ideas. And I get to sit down with him and I get to pull this stuff out of his brain and put it to me on a piece of paper, and I have to storyboard it scene by scene, and then I have to say, okay, I have to make all of this happen. I have to find a location, I have to get us there, I have to transport us, I have to find all of the actors to do this, I have to find the animals, or the camels in this case, and the food and the transportation, and that there's just so many things that go into it. So
For the record, we didn't end up using camels.
right.
It was too expensive.
You're right. And then I also have this weight on my shoulders of making all of this happen with being a good steward of what God's given us to make it happen. So from the get-go, we went to Capernaum Village in Texas. We've shot there before, all of our stuff. We love shooting there with them. So that's where we wanted to shoot it. But because we were in the middle of kids choir, we actually had a very small window of time that we could shoot this. It was one weekend. And so I reached out to them, and the Capernaum actually wasn't available that weekend. And I said, listen, that's the only weekend, like, I don't care. So they actually have like a house that we can stay in on set when we go there. I said, I don't care if we have to stay another place. I'll drive us back and forth. They said, we have a retreat. I said, we need to shoot this weekend there.
That's all we have.
That's all we had. And so they, out of the blue, they called me back and said, hey, the retreat out of the blue called us and canceled. You can have the set and you can have the house. And I was like, wait, what? And also, so that was one thing that when I thought we weren't going to be able to shoot at Capernaum, I was like, man, God, how do you want me to make this happen without the set? Like, how am I supposed to make this happen without the set there? And from the very beginning, once Blake pitched me the script, and we started kind of thinking through characters and dreaming at the characters. We had worked with Corey before, and God just really put it on my heart, for whatever reason, that Corey needed to be our main character. I didn't really tell Blake or Carl or any of them that, but it just was something that I kind of felt and knew. And we were searching for other people. And in the process of searching for other people, even after we had auditioned Corey had sent me a message and said, hey, I just got booked for another film on that weekend. I can't do it anymore. And I was crushed.
You're stressing me out.
I was so crushed, and I was like, okay, God, so now I don't have a location to shoot this. I don't have my main character to shoot this. I don't know how you want me to make this happen anymore. And it just, those little things like that. But then out of nowhere, Corey texted me back and said, hey, something changed and now I can be there. And so I went to Carl and Blake, and I was like, we're booking Corey for this now. Like,
can you imagine not having Corey? Can you, after the fact?
No.
And the neat thing, we got to meet him on my Facebook Live on Thursday night, and isn't it neat how God intersected his passion to use his gift to proclaim his faith with this project, and it was like God was weaving all this stuff together. And it's just important for me to remind each of us as individuals and everybody watching, God is weaving a story, and if we will trust him, he will put the pieces together to explode our lives on purpose and for impact. And if you're just joining us, we are taking a behind-the-scenes look of our centerpiece short film for Easter called The Soldier, and we're talking about how only God could have orchestrated these events, and these stories are inspiring me, and I know there are more, so go at it, guys.
Also, we're going to be sharing an exclusive clip, a different clip from what you showed on Thursday night, a more extensive clip near the end of this, right?
That's exactly right. We'll be showing it towards the end, so stick with us. I can't wait for them to see the whole thing, but it's really fun to show them clips, because each clip is like this magnificent jewel to help communicate the story. So, but yeah, Rachel, you carry high anxiety for the team, and we really appreciate it. And I think that helps you get into your role for Mary.
I was just gonna say, see, it builds all up and then it all unleashes when Blake is like, okay, cry.
Yeah, that's great.
That's true. I gotta say, and then Rachel, so we were doing this casting stuff literally up until we left. And then we didn't know how to get all that stuff down there. So I had to drive with Brian Minier, who's on staff and does the photography that you've seen. And I mean, he's amazing. So we had to drive to Texas with a truck full of stuff. I mean, and we had 3 days to shoot it, 3 days. And the film takes place over 3 days. So that was a logistic nightmare for Rachel. How do we even do this? How do we do it? I don't know.
And by the way, how long would a typical crew need for
Steve?
For this?
I mean, it's hard to say because it depends on the production style, but I'd say at least 5 full days as a minimum, probably for what we're doing.
And that's really budgeting your time well and saying you got to tighten it up. But
I mean, I had to pack our schedule so tight. I mean, call times were at 6 a.m. and some days we shot well past midnight. One day we shot till 4 a.m. I mean, being on set is like, I used to work in the entertainment industry, so being on set is brutal, but you normally only should shoot like an 8 or a 10-hour day. And I mean, we were pushing it to like 20-hour days. That's not normal.
And we were fighting, and a lot of it's the majority outdoors. So a lot of it has to take place at certain times or we have the wrong light. And that was so stressful.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, didn't you say that you had 3 days and you don't get to plan the weather? And isn't that another one of these only God things? I mean, weren't some of your scenes for this story demanding certain weather patterns?
Okay, so yes, let me discuss
talk
that
about
because
Friday night.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, you go.
I wanted to just say obviously this is an Easter film, so there is a resurrection scene, which is exciting, but the window of mourning is what, an hour? I mean, we had dialogue to shoot before we did the special effect. I mean, like, it was pretty intense. And literally we got out there. I remember I walked out to the tomb scene set probably at like 5:30 in the morning, just trying to figure out. I was so stressed I couldn't even sleep. How are we going to shoot this with that little window of time? And then, of course, in Texas, it's usually just bright and sunny. That day was heavily overcast and just perfect. I mean, literally, I had people out there praying. We had people on our set or on our team from NorthRidge who came, and they were praying for the weather and stuff. And we got literally the only kind of weather we could have used. We could not have shot that, guys, without that weather. And we didn't. It's not like we had another day to just be like, oh, let's go shoot. I mean, it was like literally, it has to be this day, and it has to be overcast. And sure enough, that day was dark and overcast till like 1 p.m. or something. It was like, we were all looking at each other like, how would we have done this if it was sunny right now? It was only God. And I'm telling you, and I learned Mike O'Brien, Tim Furlong, 2 people that came just to help last minute. They were on our crew. We could not have done it without them. They literally last minute were like, hey, I want to come. And we got the go ahead for that. Like, Mike flew himself down for it. I mean, we were on such a shoestring budget. But these people I learned later, while we were filming, were hiding behind something, praying over the scene while we were shooting it. We're sitting around like chickens with our heads cut off. We don't even know that's happening. And I mean, this whole thing was just such a God situation. Anyway, you tell the story about Friday, because I don't even remember what you're talking about.
Oh, I have to take this script and this scene, and I sit with Carl and with Blake and Steven, and I say, okay, this scene is going to take how much time? This scene is going to take how much time? And I have to put together this entire shoot schedule that incorporates, you know, getting talent dressed and getting them makeup, et cetera, and plan it all out. And so I have to be super critical while these guys don't want me to be like, okay, you only get a half an hour to shoot this one little thing, but I have to. So Friday was our crucifixion scene day, and we had some technical difficulties that, you know, shooting everything that we needed to shoot in 3 days was already pushing it as it was. And so Friday night came and we needed to get all these shots at the crucifixion, and we only got about half of them done and ran out of light.
Can I give you a picture really quick? Okay,
Yeah.
so we had a lift for a camera shot above the cross, right? Like a lift, and Steve had to get up there to get the shot above the cross. It's a very pivotal shot. So the lift that we ordered or whatever, I don't know, through Capernaum, it took what, 40 minutes just to get up to the height of the cross, and then like 20 minutes to get down. So we're literally sitting there wasting light watching Steve like, hey,
it's like,
got the
beep,
shot. And he's like, beep,
beep,
beep, beep. I'm telling you, I am traumatized for life.
I was just sitting on the platform of the lift, just watching Rachel's stress level rise.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Steve gets in the bucket. He's like, okay, I'll be back in. I'm going to go up 20 minutes down, get the shot. I'll be back 20 minutes. I'm like, yeah, okay, see you in 2 hours.
Yeah, that thing literally, and by the way, we had 25, 30, maybe even 40 extras. We had 40 extras waiting to shoot, just standing there watching us like, And you've got all those eyes on you. We've got our talent that's sitting around going, do these guys know what they're doing? And
Jesus hanging on the cross.
And Jesus hanging on the cross. It was the most stressful. It was like the worst day of my life, to be honest. And then when we got the pivotal shot, you'll see when you see the movie, the last shot of the intro, Steve and I are standing there and Carl, and we're just like, okay, it's too dark now. We can't even, the shot doesn't work.
Yeah, so we did all of that.
We did all of that, and then we're like, and we only had the crosses for that day. So Rachel had to do some kind of swindling to give us, we added another crucifixion shoot the following evening, which
we had to totally change, like, so that Friday night we had to regroup. We had to totally change our entire shoot schedule. And the thing that stressed me out about it the most is, so when you hire talent, you only have them for a certain block of time. And I'm very want to honor people and their time with us. And so that next Saturday morning, I was like, okay, we've got to reshoot all this crucifixion stuff. And I have to ask this 50 people. Now, when I cast these 50 extras, half of them weren't believers, didn't believe. Some of them did believe. I didn't know anything, but I said, hey, listen, we have to reshoot this tonight at 6 a.m. I'm asking them to stay until the evening. Can we reshoot this tonight? Are you willing to stay?
For sunset.
Till sunset. And I thought, from working in the entertainment industry, not Christian entertainment industry, regular movies and film, I thought that they would say no for sure and that they wouldn't stay. But by the grace of God, they were like, yeah, sure, we'd love to. And I was like, what? No, that doesn't happen. You don't get a group of 50 extras that say, oh yeah, sure, we'll stay for tomorrow night.
Yeah, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
So we have the high anxiety members of the team. They've been clearly identified. And then we've got Carl stabilizing the entire
trying to keep everyone
process,
calm.
right? Carl, tell me your view of this stuff and what filming was like from your perspective.
Well, like Rachel was saying, I don't know if she made it clear, but that was the first day of shooting that setback. That was day one, and we were already behind.
Yeah.
But it was chaotic, but like everyone has said, as soon as there was a setback, God provided a solution. As soon as there was a setback for that evening, then the solution was made for us with, the following day with the extra. Same thing with that cloudy day that we had. As soon as there was a setback, it was then the next day there was an answer for it. So throughout the whole process, it was stressing out and then God relieving that stress shortly after. So, but it was, it was ambitious. 3 days to do everything was, and to be honest, we actually planned for a 4th day, and we got it done even before that. Which was
Yeah, because the
that is a
weather was so
miracle.
good on.
So tell
Like-
me, what I'd love to hear. I mean, I think we're hearing the only God all the way through this. We're hearing what the filming was like. I think we get a sense of the tension. But I'd love to know, because through these experiences, God always is doing things in us. There are always things that happen in us, and I'd love to hear just a little from each of you about. So with all this that was going on, what's the takeaway from your experience with this that you feel like will maybe reshape you for the future?
There were a couple times, I gotta say, where I literally looked up at the sky and just winked, like, dude, I see I'm picking up what you're laying down, buddy. I knew, because you just don't. Brian Minier, who lived in Texas, was on set, and we had a bunch of people like doubling as Roman soldiers, and then as a dead body, and then it was hilarious. But anyway, he lived in Texas for years, or I think a couple years, and he said that he's never seen an overcast day like you just don't get these things. That was a big one for me, and I think it just two things. It makes me know that I'll never do a 3-day shoot again. That's one. And then secondly, that I can trust God when he's leading stuff. I mean, like, what you guys will see, and there were moments where we were watching the screen while we were filming, and we were all just like, Steve, I remember there's a moment, the final scene.
Yeah.
We were filming the scene, and you got to understand, it's so stressful. Like, just one other example of the stress is the baby dwarf donkey. You remember that?
Yeah.
We Anyway, we had a whole scene planned out with the donkey, and then they brought it to us, and it was a dwarf baby donkey. It's supposed to be the donkey that Jesus rode in on. Anyway, so we had to scrap that. There was no donkey replacement. I mean, it was just constantly thinking on our feet. But anyway, the final scene, I remember we were shooting that with Felix, and we called cut, and Steve looks up from his camera, and he's got tears coming down his face. And I look over at Brian, and Brian Minier, he's got tears in his eyes, and we're all just like tearing up. And it's just like God shows up in these moments, and I'll never forget that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this project, for me, I feel like it changed a lot of my perspective about how I work, because I think a lot of times as a DP, I want to come in, it's like your thought process is, I want to make this look this way, and I'm creating this, and there was so much more of a feeling on this project of seeing God's hand and understanding that it was already, like, the frames were already there, like everything was already laid out, and it was more so allowing yourself just to kind of be the witness of what was happening and just watch it unfold a little bit more. And it was very honoring in a way. And I even remember I was talking with Corey about that at the end of one of our shoot days, because just his performance was incredible. And I remember there's one moment where he's at the Roman barracks, and it's an emotional moment, and Blake just told everyone, let's everyone get out of the room, because he really wanted to give Corey his space to get into character and everything. And so it's just me, a camera, and one light, and Corey, and just sitting there with it. And it was just, I felt honored just to be like a witness to his performance. It was incredible. And I felt very like there's a high level of trust, I feel like, that you have to put in somebody to kind of be there and like be in tears while they're just sitting there as this quiet observer like I was.
Yeah, I've seen that in the edit too. I gotta say, there were a couple scenes where I was just freaking out. I don't know how these are gonna work, how it's gonna connect. And I felt that same exact thing you're saying. The frames are already there. Literally, I felt like God had given me everything I needed. I just had to invest myself in finding it. And and it turns out, I mean, based on the final edit, like, I had everything that I needed. Even though leaving and driving home from Texas, I was so like worried that I didn't have everything. And it was all there. And most movies do reshoots and bring back the stuff to get things continuity wise and all that stuff. We didn't have any of that anytime. And it's all there. And when these people see it, when you get to see it, it's obviously God's hand was on it. There's just no doubt.
Yeah.
I think that for me, working through this film, and since after now, God has been teaching me something about trust. So, you know, we poured our hearts and souls into making this film happen. And we walked away, we had a little debrief all together. We walked away just really feeling like I cried the day I got home on the plane after this, because I just felt God saying, I'm going to do something amazing with this. And even from the beginning, you know, all the little things, I'm the type of person that once spiritual warfare ramps up, like I could see like, okay, the devil is trying to make this shoot happen. And that fires me up, you know? So I wanted to make it happen even more because he was working against it. So then we came home and we're all fired up and excited and so just in awe of how big this is going to be and how awesome it's going to be. And, you know, Blake and Carl and I are talking about, you know, making other films and doing all this cool stuff and film festivals and all of this. And, you know, we were, and planning for Easter here at NorthRidge. And then this virus happened. And I have to tell you that I was devastated. I wish I could sit there and tell you that I wasn't. But I was devastated. I mean, I felt like somebody had ripped my heart out because I thought, okay, we poured our hearts into this and now nobody's going to get to see it, or yeah, people are just going to watch it online. Like we don't get to have this in-person thing. And God, clear as day, like he always does, said to me, Rachel, you trusted me through all of those little things, making it happen, and you trusted me when you thought that there was going to be an in-person premiere. When you were planning this shoot, I knew that this virus was going to happen. I knew that the church wasn't going to be open, and yet I still allowed it to happen. Why are you not trusting me now? I mean, you know, and what do you say when God says that to you? You just say, you're taken aback. So to me, it's just really been about trusting him and trusting that he knows what's going to happen and he knows why we do these things and how he's going to use it. And it's not for us to understand.
He's, you know, every time I've built a building through God's leadership, it's always had limited number of seats. And the only way I can expand is by offering multiple services so that we're building an auditorium every time. And I think what God's done here is he's allowed us now through this virus and this online only to create an auditorium for the viewing of this film of hope that has no limits on its seats. And for all of you who are experiencing this, you're getting a sense of, oh my gosh, the God thing's going on. God's got great things intended for this. He's also, you know, entrusting its success to you, because you know, all you have to do, all the work that's been done to get this film here, it's nothing if we don't invite people to sit in front of this. And so I really hope you're being inspired to do that. But Carl, how about you? What's the God thing that flows out of this thing for you?
Well, you know, like Blake said earlier, the longest thing I think we made was 6 minutes. I think, yeah, it was that Saturday piece. So that was the longest thing narratively that we had done up until that point. So when we came to this is like the first time we were doing this long story with tons of dialogue, with tons of different, I mean, it was a huge undertaking. And I mean, I don't show my stress a lot, but I was concerned that we were biting off more than we could chew. But to piggyback off what Steve was saying, it wasn't until we started getting those scenes where the actors started acting and started performing their lines, and then like I'm watching on the monitor, Blake and I are looking at each other, we're just like smiling and or getting teary-eyed. It's like, oh, this is real. Like, this, and a lot of it is God, because you know, even though we're putting this stuff together and writing it, and like we don't know like if it's gonna be emotional or if people are gonna respond to it, but from just being on set and now the feedback, I mean, it's incredible. So it was a lot of trust. Like we did prepared the horse for battle and did all that we could. But everything that's come from this, all the looking through all the footage and everything, I mean, it's like how the days lined up, how the extras stayed later, our crew just being available at the last minute. It was just, yeah, my biggest takeaway was just, if you trust God, man, like,
Sir, whose tomb is this? Go on. Take a good long look. Make sure he's fresh. I'm sure you all remember our friend from earlier, the king. Say what you will about him, but a man can take a beating. Wait, the homeless guy owns this? Yeah, I thought the same thing. Turns out he has some powerful friends. Don't ask me how. Now, why you would soil a perfectly good tomb like this with someone other than your own blood just defies explanation. I tell you, wealth is wasted on the rich. So, why do we have to guard it? The high priest seems to think that some of his more fanatical followers might try something stupid. So, here we are. Well, he's there. Good. Now seal it. The Roman way.
Are we trying to keep people from getting in or keep him from getting out?
Well, I hope that gives you just a small sense of the power that this short film inhabits. And it's going to be exciting when you see beginning. And I have to tell you, every one of us who feared so much about this being the centerpiece of Easter in our humanity have been blown away emotionally by watching the narrative unfold. So whatever you're getting from those short clips, trust me, the premiere is going to be amazing. But I'd love your summary thoughts, guys. What, you know, a final thought, what you hope to see accomplished, throw it out.
I just hope people are moved. I hope people are moved by it like we were making it. It's really interesting what you said about God orchestrating our paths and stuff. It's strange to think of like the culmination of all our years of experience have led to this point. We couldn't have done it without anyone. Everyone was necessary, and a lot of people were just last minute add-ons. And looking back, we could not have done it without them. It's like, it's amazing. And the culmination of all our skill sets come together for this one point in time. It was so orchestrated and it's so powerful. And I just can't wait for people to get to experience Felix's journey. It is something that even in editing is moving. And I'm just so excited for people to experience it and hopefully grow from it.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be an amazing thing for everybody to see and experience, especially in the midst of where we're at right now. Just the hope that comes in Jesus, and the hope that comes in trusting him, and the hope that comes in knowing that he will always be there for us no matter what, through even dark times and all the things. Because, you know, that's kind of a little bit like what our film is about. It's just about hope and love and trust. And you just got to have it, you know?
And it's a story too about forgiveness. You know, it's love, hope, and forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So Brad, you know, your message of failure not being final, I mean, it's kind of all over this thing. So yeah, I hope people will be impacted by it and are able to rewatch it and share it with others, and, you know, just have a big impact this Easter.
Awesome.
I feel like this project in particular really had like this high level of collaboration that once again was very much like a God thing, but the amount of collaboration and sharing of ideas that came together is really something that wouldn't typically happen in a more formal production. And it was just this group of people coming together that really was just so to really create something special. And I think, and I hope that when people watch this, that's going to come through for them, and that they'll get to experience that specialness around this project too.
Well, what I love about it is that it is, God always uses people. I mean, we know about Moses, we know about Joshua, we know about Abraham, but the truth is that their stories were only made possible, yes, by their faith in God, but then by the thousands of people that were ultimately a part of their story. And yeah, it's the people of Israel. Moses led it out. And I am so proud of and thankful for you guys leading this out, but it's so neat that, and for those of you who are part of NorthRidge, I hope you really get this. This is, speak of collaboration. We can't do much as individuals. We can't do much as a couple of people together, but when you combine who we are as a church family to a mission like waking the world up to Jesus, and then trust what God is doing through leadership or through people exercising their gift like you guys have in this film, you can do a project like this that could ultimately change the world. And it's so neat knowing that we're not in this alone, we're in this together. And I just want to say to those of you who are watching, I hope you got a sense of the excitement. If those who were involved in the blood, sweat, and tears equity of making this thing happen have been so moved by it, imagine how you're going to be moved by it and experiencing it and inviting people in. And this is a movie with great storytelling. It's just done brilliantly, but it's eternal at its core. It's so that you can share the hope of Easter with people, and hope that you will. Want to tell you right up front, it's going to be a PG rating. They've done a great job sensitizing any violence around it, but Jesus did die for our sins, and the brutality of that was real. They did that with great artistry and creativity, and some of the storyline is down there, but we're just rating it PG. So, if you have great sensitivity about what your kids watch, you can take that into mind. But we believe this was built for really almost everyone to see and to appreciate what you read in the Gospels, and that hidden story about a person whom you don't know much about, whose life was transformed at the foot of the cross, at the end of his most despicable moment. He was able to see that this was really the Son of God and what might have been his story. And so I hope you'll be inviting people. We've made it really easy, really easy. Go to Easter@northridge.com. You can see all that's coming down the pike about the 9/16 and 11/16 tomorrow morning, the premieres, and ways to invite. And I hope you will, and share. And even after Easter is over, I hope that you'll share. But if I could just speak on behalf of all of NorthRidge, thanks each and every one of you, Carl, Blake, Steve, Rach, and everyone that was in association and collaboration with you to put this on. We're really, really proud of you, and how neat it's going to be to see what God has intended from this 3-day miraculous adventure in Texas. Can't believe anything can come out of Texas, but this did, and that's great. So thanks, everybody, and I can't wait to see what God does, and I'll be praying for you, praying for this thing, and I know you will. Wave goodbye to everybody. See you, everybody. Thanks so much for participating in this.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you at Easter.
Mm-hmm.